Okay, I know Josie is at home waiting for this next session, this next presenter. Our next presenter is someone very, very special to me personally, very special to Josie and to our entire community, and not only our community, but to the larger rare disease community. He has turned our world upside down and proven to us that while our FOXG1 children cannot necessarily speak or use our bodies with purpose, it is very likely something that we've all known as parents, that our children understand, not only understand, but if it could speak and if they could communicate, they have a lot to say, and brilliantly. Abraham Abey Weitzman is a FOXG1 patient, and he's also a student at Columbia University and a published writer. Abey is a guest lecturer at Long Island University, where he teaches teachers about working with non-speaking students. For the first time, not just for us, but I bet for any rare disease community, we are able to welcome a FOXG1 patient to the stage to explain what it is really like to have FOXG1 syndrome. Please welcome Abey and his aide, Mahmood.
Good afternoon. I'm Abey Weitzman, and this is my good friend of 14 years, Mahmood al-Adadwe. We are a team. Mahmood is going to read the presentation I've written and some answers to questions you've sent me. I will also take questions and answer them here or later on if we run out of time. My presentation and answers to questions will be available for you to read on my website, abeyweitzman.com. So please enjoy the talk without worrying about notes. My life began uneventfully at Columbia Presbyterian Hospital in New York City. I was born with no complications, weighing 8 pounds, 8 ounces. I nursed, cried, and watched the Mets lose on TV. That was the one normal day of my life. The next day, a doctor noticed an irregular heartbeat and sent me to the NICU, where I was the biggest, healthiest baby. I was tested, monitored, and medicated. I left the hospital with an appointment to follow up with a cardiologist. The heart issue resolved, having nothing to do with my eventual diagnosis. However, it meant that my parents already had a favorite restaurant near the hospital by the time my head circumference dipped below 2% of the population. There were MRIs, genetic tests, EEGs, evaluations, hospitalizations, and surgeries. But I don't remember any of that. Other than therapy, my life felt pretty normal. I did things kids do in New York City. I went to school, played at the park, went to museums and kids' performances, rode the city bus. I knew I was different because I moved, ate, and wrote differently, but I was included and accepted by my community. I didn't realize how different I was, as New York City is filled with people who are different. Until 8th grade, I went to a special education school. My formative years were at the Henry Viscardi School, where not only the kids used wheelchairs. The school president had a scooter, and so did my technology teacher. I had a wheelchair basketball coach who used a wheelchair. My 7th grade teacher's husband was a judge, a wheelchair user, and a graduate who visited every year. I was exposed to strong, successful, disabled people. They were role models, showing me what my future could be. At Viscardi, I didn't just feel normal. I was normal. At the same time, I had teachers with high expectations and talented therapists, as well as 4 devoted nurses. The person who supported me every day for 8 years was my para, Harriet. She got me out of my chair over and over so I could participate in class and talk with my friends. As I got bigger, heavier, and harder to lift, I also knew that eventually I would need to go to school with non-disabled peers. I would have to leave Viscardi. It felt like jumping off a cliff. When you part ways with friends you have known for as long as you can remember, for a big adventure, it is terrifying and wonderful. I knew it would be completely different from the insulated environment I was accustomed to. It was intimidating to leave my other 7 classmates for rotating class schedules, packed halls, and new therapists who would need to learn about my communication systems. I was filled with what-ifs. That September, I started Bard High School Early College Queens with my human security blanket, Mahmood. We had been a team at home for 7 years, and he agreed to be my para for the first year to make the transition easier. Mahmood knows everything about me, from physical needs to my favorite band, so I was braver with him behind me pushing my chair. It did not take long to realize I did not need to be brave. Defining myself as willing to listen ended up being important, and luckily it is one of my specialties. First, I listen carefully, and then I ask questions so people know I've been paying attention. It starts with finding something to appreciate in what they say, and then wanting to hear more. I recommend this plan to anyone looking for new friends. The friends I made the first week of school are still my friends today. I thought I would struggle to keep up in class and social situations. It was difficult, but not impossible, and it was rewarding in every way. My younger brother joined me at Bard 2 years later, and together we started the first Able-Disabled Alliance in New York City. I spoke at commencement with my brother reading my speech. I received numerous awards and admission to Columbia University. By then, Mahmood and I were inseparable. I am now in my 4th year of a 5-year plan at Columbia. I take a reduced course load because it physically takes me longer to produce the assignments. I live in the dorm during the week and at home on weekends. I have friends, and I have continued my disability justice work with the student group Spoons. I did all of this without having the etiology of my disability and related health conditions. Before I received the news that I had FOXG1 syndrome, I had many diagnoses based on symptoms. My medical team treated symptoms to maximize my quality of life while ensuring my long-term health. My medical history is too long for a presentation like this, but I'd like to highlight the important points. Let's start with nutrition. You've heard me say that eating is overrated. I was good at nursing and drinking from a bottle, but I could not eat solid food or keep anything down. I got a G-tube at 17 months and a fundoplication at 4 years old. I don't remember life without them. I had my tonsils out at 2 to address sleep apnea and my strabismus corrected at the same time. I started therapy at 7 months, and other than the pandemic, never stopped. I had my first seizure at 11 months, and 6 medications later, they found a regimen that, with occasional adjustments, keeps me seizure-free. I got my first braces around 1 year old. I wear my AFOs every day, all day, with Timberland boots, except at the beach. I am happy, and other than crying the first 6 months of my life, which I obviously don't remember, I always have been. I attribute my contentment to being a Weitzman, since my father and brother are similar. All of my serious medical conditions were identified and cared for by the age of 6. By then, I had a team of specialists. My treatments were adjusted over the years, particularly around sleep and digestion, but from age 6 to 18, I had the same doctors and hospitals, the same pharmacist and therapy clinic. I had continuity of care. I've been able to communicate for my whole life using my legs and torso to hit switches that control a computer program written by my dad. I used pictures until I began spelling words around 5 years old. At 6, I wrote my first story and started my blog. Here's that story. Plausible am I, said Charlie. Charlie was a con artist. Hardly able to move, Charlie spoke softly. He dared people to approach, making eye contact and smiling. When they accepted his invitation, he asked for their friendship. After a bit more time, he faced them with doubt and posed that question, "Can I trust you?" Charlie tolerated a life of daily indignities, which ladies felt sorry for. He let them feel pity, but inflicted damage quietly. They readily gave Charlie account numbers and passwords because he keenly had offered to help pay their bills. How could they refuse? Over time, safely, Charlie hid money. Locked in by his disruptive flimsiness, he was never suspected. Eventually, choosing boyfriends, they left Charlie, just as he planned. At 11, my first story was published online, and I won my first award. Over the years, I became a regular contributor and then joined the editorial board of Kid Spirit Online, receiving regional and national writing awards. I've had 2 plays workshopped. Much of my writing touched on disability in some way. While I was focused on academics, I loved the outdoors. I enjoy adaptive skiing, bocce, and croquet. I'm an avid hiker using the ATVs built by my dad. We hike close to home in the Catskills, often using the Rails to Trails network. I've hiked the Rocky Mountains, the Grand Canyon, and the Adirondacks, but my favorite trails are in Acadia National Park. Built by John D. Rockefeller for horse-drawn carriages, these hikes bring me deep into the forest. It was after one of these hikes to Jordan Pond that my mom got the call that brings me here today. Dr. Ubaldi, a researcher who worked with my movement disorder specialist, had swabbed my cheek and found that one of my genes for the FOXG1 protein was damaged, leaving me with half of the typical protein needed to control early brain development. In the moment, I was more concerned with discussing fantasy football in the hot tub. Later, as it sunk in, I worried about what that might mean for my future. Would I continue to be stable? Could I have children? How could I meet the others like me? When my parents read the list of symptoms that accompany FOXG1 syndrome, they were amazed I had every one: feeding difficulties, epilepsy, hypotonia, chorea, sleep issues, and an inability to speak. Really everyone but intellectual disability. My mom was worried about joining a group where we might encounter people like Dr. Miles or Kelly, my kindergarten teacher, who insisted my brain was damaged and my mother was in denial. My dad thought that we had something to offer, but he deferred to her initially. I was so excited to find out that there were others like me. Even at Viscardi, surrounded by disabled kids, I was the only one. My desire to meet others made my mom reinstall Facebook on her phone and join the parent group. So far, I've met 3 kids with FOXG1 syndrome in person, and I have an online friend that I email with. I believe many people with FOXG1 could communicate and have a lot to say. This is your most important job, to give them a voice. They might surprise you or me. They may still love Wheels on the Bus and have no interest in Queen. They may want to give up eating. They may be bored in school or wish they weren't the only disabled kid in the class. They might want to communicate with me or a person their own age who gets it. I can imagine that sounds overwhelming, because it is. And you must keep trying. The people who actually have FOXG1 syndrome need a community, just the way all of you parents have found one here. To have a community, you need to communicate. My symptoms, in order of priority for treatment, may not be the same as others, but that is because I have successful treatments already. For example, epilepsy is low on my list because I have medication that works well. I put movement control on the top of my list. If I didn't have involuntary movements, I would be able to hold still enough to read a book with my eyes. The method of auditory reading does not lend itself to rereading passages. I miss the format of poetry. I can't read a map or reference a graph. If I didn't have involuntary movements, I would not have uncontrolled vocalizations. I could go to the theater without waiting for the Autism Initiative performance. I could go to the opera and the symphony. I wouldn't disrupt lectures at school. If I didn't have involuntary movements, my arms wouldn't flail. Sometimes I touch people in inappropriate ways because I reach for whatever is in my sight line, including the top of people's shirts. Sometimes I hit my mom in the face, knocking her glasses off. Who would go near a man who might hit them for any reason, much less no reason? Sometimes, no, all the time, when I'm sitting in my wheelchair wearing long pants, my fingers stroke my crotch. It is embarrassing, and over time it wears a hole in my pants, but my mom is careful not to put those on me outside the house. In shorts, I pull up the leg at the hem, which can expose my diaper, which is only a little less embarrassing. In a year and a half, I will graduate from Columbia University with a bachelor's degree in nonfiction writing. I imagine my life will include a job, an apartment, outings with friends, visiting my family, and hopefully a girlfriend. I have confidence that I can live a happy and reasonably rewarding life without a romantic partner, but I think it would be better with one. It is hard to get physically close to someone when I move so much, so if one of you researchers could figure out a treatment, that would be great. Even though I'd like to have a job, I can see that my sleep schedule is not compatible with hourly employment. I may work freelance or part-time. My creative work needs time to produce as well. The thing I'm sure of is that I want to be there in person. Despite the transportation challenges, I would not choose remote work. Human contact is too valuable to trade for convenience. I plan to live in New York City where my parents can support me while I can live with aides providing day-to-day care. Independence is different when you require assistance with all activities of daily living. For me, it means having multiple aides who know how I need things done. They work as a team, letting my mom and dad know about schedule changes. My parents make sure the agencies pay everyone and manage paperwork and case managers. This gives me the freedom to work at my craft. I'm a writer. I write every day. I plan to do that for the rest of a long and happy life. This year, I had spinal fusion surgery. I had no symptoms other than scoliosis and a sore spot under one arm. When I pointed out that my lungs were healthy and I had no pain, the surgeon responded that he expected me to live a full life, and this was preventative. My plans for the future will include any treatment I need to care for the body that I have. While I don't expect a cure for FOXG1 syndrome to change my body, after all, I'm 21, I'm hoping it could repair or at least maintain my brain. I have listened to news coming from the lab in Buffalo, and it gives me hope I never anticipated. Before I offer advice, I want to emphasize that I am one person telling you about my experience and offering my perspective. I have insight because I share symptoms with your children, patients, and research subjects. Even though we may have the same symptoms, we may feel very differently about them. Like two people with Down syndrome, autism, or spinal muscular atrophy, two people with FOXG1 syndrome are just that, two people. When I was little, my parents had many experts offering opinions and advice. It was difficult to know who to believe and where to put their time and resources. The best decisions they made were to get me as much therapy as possible and to treat me as though I had the same intellect as my siblings. You may ask how much therapy is enough. The answer is, it will never be enough. You have to do as much as you can within the constraints you have and look for ways to incorporate therapy in your life when you can. I was lucky to grow up in New York where the services are generous. Still, my mom asked, what can we do at home? I never watched TV without some kind of therapeutic positioning. I sat in ring sitting with a pillow in front of me in case I fell over. More than once, the pillow slipped and I split my chin open. My mom patched me up and kept going. It may have traumatized my sister's best friend. She got over it. I did corner standing with mats behind me and my mom in front tapping my knees to cue them to stay straight. If I sat with more support, she put the screen above my head to work on my downward gaze. To this day, I watch movies in my standard to make sure I get enough weight bearing. If you see us in the pool, she will probably be stretching me. And it will never be enough, and that is okay. My parents spoke to me the same way they spoke to my brother and sister, in full sentences with an extensive vocabulary. This meant that I was expected to understand. I was read to all day by parents, babysitters, grandparents, and when they couldn't, I had books on tape, and then on a cartridge, and then online from the Library of Congress. I'm an auditory learner, so I absorbed it all. We went to museums, concerts, the baseball game, and the circus. We went to the aquarium, the zoo, and the botanical gardens. We had parties for kids and Oktoberfest for adults. I learned to tap a keg, mix a margarita, and open a bottle of champagne without breaking the light fixture. I learned to bake bread, fry latkes, and grill steaks. I was included in everything my family did. My advice is not to do what we did. I think my mom is nuts, and my dad never met a martini he didn't like. You should do what works for your family. Maybe that is Little League and church, or maybe it is making pastelas and salsa dancing. Maybe you have lots of family support, or maybe you're a single parent far from home. Get your kid as much therapy as you can and treat them like any other child in your family, knowing that they are a person on the inside just like you. I've received some questions prior to today. I'll read them along with the answers I've written. Please feel free to ask more questions. If I can't finish answering today, I will include my responses in the text posted on my website. How can I communicate best with my son Benjamin, who's 4 years old? I suggest that you talk to him similarly to the way you would speak to any other 4-year-old, but be sure to pause for him to respond, even if he can't speak. Tell him that you know he has ideas and opinions that you wish he could tell you about. Leave space in the conversation and look for any two movements that indicate what he likes and dislikes. Be willing to take no for an answer. People like me have many things they can't control. If there is something you can give him control over, do it. Next question. Abey, knowing you have a severe mutation, could you share your thoughts on a FOXG1 child's potential to communicate using switches, regardless of the severity of their mutation? As I mentioned, look for a movement that person can control. It may not be where you expect it. It could be their legs or their eyes. Explain to your child that you are looking for a way for them to say what they are thinking. Take them out of their wheelchair and try holding them to feel for the voluntary movement amidst the involuntary. Once you find what they can control, use that to activate a switch or switches. There are many types of switches, too many to go into now. If you want to know more, go to my parents' roundtable tomorrow. Our question is, what is your intellectual capability? I want to know what you can understand and comprehend because I know how intelligent you and Fox children are. Our Fox is Tessa, who is 2.5 years old. I'm an average Ivy League college student. I have particularly strong math skills, even though I'm known for my writing. I do most calculations in my head, so I stopped after differential calculus because it became too difficult to do in my head and too laborious to type with my switches. I miss it, but everyone have to make choices. I have an excellent memory for things I hear. I read auditorily since I can't turn pages, so I've trained myself to listen carefully. I had an OT who used a method that involved using headphones and special recordings. I think that helped get me started, but I also have years of practice since all of my textbooks have been digital since 3rd grade or so. I think that kids with FOXG1 syndrome, like my variant, are held back by a lack of the right communication system and access point, not a lack of intellect. But as I said, I am one person with FOXG1 syndrome, and I only know 4 others. Those are all the questions I received before this presentation was written. Are there other questions? If we run out of time, please feel free to write them down, and I will answer them later.
Wow. That was so beautifully written. I mean, we have so much to say. This, like I said at the beginning, Abey has turned our world upside down, has showed us that given the tools, our children, who we were told will never communicate with us, if given the right tools, they have a lot to say. So this is how Abey does it. So first I want to say, Josh and Michelle, thank you. Thank you for your martinis. Thank you. They are parents who did not have a diagnosis until Abey was 19 years old. And without having one, they just found a way. And Michelle, she coined the term, or told me the term, point of access. So what does that mean? So, this is the way that Abey can communicate. Abey is able to bear weight. So what do parents do? They create a communications device for him and figured out this brilliant way for Abey to communicate. Well, and he's going to show you here today. And for anybody here, you could test it upstairs, especially if your children are here. Does anybody have a question they want to ask Abey here? I mean, I'll ask you, are you having a good time here at our conference in Florida? So Abey's able to bear weight, which when we tried this with Josie, she isn't. So what Michelle said is, that's not her point of access. This is his point of access. So our children, given a point of access, can express what they want to say. Something else Josh told me when I met Josh is, I said, how did you know? How did you first know that Abey understood everything? And he said, we were sitting around the kitchen table and we were joking and someone made a joke and Abey laughed at the precise moment that everybody laughed. And that was an aha moment for me because Josie does the same thing. And we know she understands. And I think a lot of us feel that way. And so given the tools, our children could communicate.
Abey says it's been great.
We're so happy that you're here. Okay, someone has a question. Yes.
Hello. Music is such a big part of our lives, and dancing and just having fun, you can feel it. And I just wondered, he looks like he would really enjoy all the things, and what is his favorite music at the moment and his favorite person who he listens to.
Yeah, you said that one of your aides or your friends know your favorite band. I was curious as well.
Queen. Always been Queen.
Which is consistently rated the #1 rock band of all time. So, you have good taste. Does anyone have any questions? Tim?
Thank you. My question is about your vision, and if you could tell us how to make better augmentative communication devices, how would you design them for people that have challenges with vision, like yourself?
Something else while he's writing interesting is AB and his family came over to my house recently and they forgot the device. And he's so used to doing this that he didn't even really need it. So they've done it so often that they know where the buttons are, and each button, it correlates with a letter. So Michelle was able to hold AB and write and answer his questions even without the device. I thought that was amazing. That's okay. Yeah, you come over here.
No,
No.
I'm holding AB's hands back, or else he will hit the button unintentionally.
Right, yeah. Mahmood is very strong. He's been doing this a long time. And you're at school with AB, right? Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wish we could have showed this up on the screen. So the computer screen shows the letters that he's hitting. Each button has 5 letters attached to it. So, and Josh and Michelle are here, and we'll show everybody upstairs if you want your own demo of this. So each button has 5 letters. So if you hit it once, it's the first letter, twice, it's the second, and then it writes it on the computer. And so while he's writing this too, so one thing that I wrote a blog post about it is when we talk about point of access, this is AB's point of access, but that wasn't Josie's point of access. So Michelle is over at my house, and I said, oh, well, Josie can't bear weight that well. She said, okay, well, let's find what her point of access is. And she said, maybe it's leaning to the right and to the left. And Michelle sat Josie on her lap, and she said, Josie, if you lean to the right, that's yes. Josie, if you lean to the left, that's no. Show me yes. Sure enough, Josie leaned to the right. So Michelle has opened up a means of communication for Josie, and I could talk all day about how many times it has been so useful. And actually the last time that she had a UTI, I knew because I asked her, and she leaned to the right to tell me that she had pain. I said, is it in your head? No. I mean, we got down to it, and this is because we found her point of access. Josie completely understood.
Yeah, AB says, I think then eye gaze is not a good option, as it wasn't when I tried it.
Yeah. And I think a lot of FOXG1 parents will say there are FOXG1 patients that use eye gaze, and some successfully, but a lot, it's just not successful because of movement disorder and just not being able to effectively look where they want to look. So yeah, it's finding the right communications device, and then we can unlock our children's voice like AB has.
AB, how do you tell Mahmood or your parents that you want to communicate or you need to say something or write something?
That's a good question. Right, so how can AB indicate that he has something to say? And something, when we first met AB, something that he wrote was one of the first things that I read is, because of movement disorder, of involuntary sounds, that people would see him and dismiss that here is somebody that completely understands everything that's going on around him. And hearing him write this, reading this from somebody who has FOXG1, it's so enlightening to know, like, never dismiss anybody for thinking that they don't understand, because clearly they do. Yes, always assume competence and find their point of access. Something else Josie does with the leaning is when I ask the right question, she laughs. So that, and that's her telling me, yes, finally, because I will definitely ask 20 wrong questions before I get to it. But it's been life-changing. Right, Josie? She's watching. Mm-hmm. Right, right, yeah. Not just Mahmood.
Yeah, so Abey said, first, I'm up a lot. Sometimes he'll fidget in his chair, or sometimes he just waits and he's up and say it then.
And maybe it's also like parents' intuition, right? I've been with Michelle and Josh where we're talking and then she looks over at Abey and she's like, let's ask Abey. You know, so she just sort of knows when he has something to say. And I've seen it successful every time.
So, Nicole, we're going to keep taking questions and skip over the break to give Abey a little more time. But
Okay.
there are snacks, and if folks need to use the bathroom, there are refreshments and things to give Abey time to answer.
Okay, great,
I
great.
have another question over here.
Hello, Abey. I was just wondering if you had a favorite author.
Favorite author? My favorite author is Abey Weitzman. And I'm not joking. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I love that. Yeah. So we have to, it's innovation. When a device doesn't work, how can we be innovative and find something that does?
He says, I like Hemingway.
Wow.
All right. My question is, what is the best way to that you like people to approach you, to converse with you? Because my intuition says to get down at your eye level and speak to you.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know what you like the most. And like if someone were to touch you, would that be okay? Or yeah, what is your favorite or best way, the best way to approach you, to talk with you?
That's a great question. I mean, what Abey has taught me is to not treat our children like babies. We don't have to speak to them like babies. We don't have to speak louder. They hear us, and it's something to think about. Right? Right. Well, if they're babies, then, yeah, exactly, yes. Yeah, treat people their age. Be age appropriate, read age appropriate books, show age appropriate TV shows if you're watching TV. Listen to age appropriate music, although Josie does still like the Wheels on the Bus. No. But age appropriate.
Abey says, regarding just talking to him, he's fine if you're just regularly standing up as you would. And for touching, you wouldn't touch another adult in a way other than like a handshake or a fist bump. So just touching, not really okay.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Abey. Thank you so much for joining us today.